House in Baltimore and WNST.net. We got fake football in the air. I smell Redskins coming to Baltimore on Thursday, but, it all kind of withers away after the first snap or two in any preseason. And thank goodness we have the Orioles keeping us up late out on the West Coast all week long. They will be in Anaheim, where this guy has covered baseball and sports for the better part of 3 decades, a long time at the Orange County Register, now up in Los Angeles, California, doing it with the news group there as well as the LA Daily News. You can follow his journey out on Twitter at MWicker03Lang. And we're going to talk some Angels baseball, some Southern California baseball as well with Mark Wicker. We welcome him back onto the program, one of the venerable baseball writers and longtime Southern California baseball followers. This is a weird one, right? Artie Moreno's going to be taking gas down in Anaheim. Dodgers are like the best team in the land. They're putting an exclamation point on this little masterpiece so far, right?
Yeah, I think tonight was the 12th time they've swept the series since May 26th. I mean, it's and they've got all kinds of other statistics you can throw out there. It's been an amazing run all summer long, and they're having fun. And they and the last week or two they've done it without Clayton Kershaw. So they're. Who knows what's going to happen in the playoffs, but they're having a good time right now.
Well, not much happening up there at Chavez Ravine until October, right? I mean, they're kind of on some level of cruise control, much like the Nationals and the Astros. And meanwhile, there are these also-rans, the Angels and the Orioles hovering, floundering at under 500, yet somehow wake up and they're 2 or 3 games away from being a playoff team. If this is what Buddy Selig was trying to do with this whole second wild card thing, so far so good. It certainly created an incredible conundrum around the trading deadline last week, right?
Well, a couple of teams have been able to win that one-game knockout and go on to bigger and better things too. So that's worked out well. There's a lot of urgency in that one-game wild card playoff, and yet it still on paper gives you an advantage if you do win the division. So I think that's what they tried to do. In the past, it really didn't matter whether you were a wild card or you won the division. You still had pretty much the same shot at getting to the championship series, and now it's. On paper, anyway, it's a little bit harder. I mean, I think the only thing it does, it gives a lot of teams the illusion that they're in it when they really aren't. I mean,
they won't be, right? I mean, maybe they are, but they won't be. I don't think all these teams can stay under 500, still be looking for a wild card berth in the middle of September. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think mathematically that's possible because at some point somebody's got to win some games, right?
Oh yeah, and so you're 3 or 4 games out now of the second wild card. Well. That sounds good, but what it means is you're going to have to get really hot, and the teams in front of you are going to have to get really cold for you to actually get there. And the margin for error is so difficult. You really have to have a couple of weeks where you basically don't lose any games in order to get there because it's tough to make up ground on that many teams when they're all playing and they're all having pretty much the same hopes that you have.
Man, the Mariners picking up players. I mean, the Orioles sort of went in on Hellickson, and Beckham's been a great pickup. Where are the Angels? I mean, what are we going to find here the next couple of days out there? Certainly, if you're an Orioles fan, you're pretty pissed off to find Parker Bridwell in a rotation and getting guys out after having toiled 7 years in the minors here and never really getting much of a cup of coffee above Double-A ball where he was a 5 ERA pitcher. I mean, he's got to be the bright, shining part of whatever the Angels' playoff hopes are at this point, right?
Yeah, they're very pleased with him, and they've got a couple of reclamation projects in their rotation that they've been that have really pitched pretty well. But the Angels don't have enough assets to really make a big deal. Their minor league system doesn't have a lot of prospects that people want, and the inventory in the major league club really is not very deep. They have a lot of guys who struggle offensively. I think they have the worst OPS in the American League. And, they have a couple of players who are playing very well, but there's a big drop-off after that. And, the way they're starting pitching is they need all the bullpen they could get. And some of those guys are beginning to reflect a little bit of the wear and tear. This kid, Keenan Middleton, who had pitched very well early in the season, he's struggling a little bit now because he's had a lot of outings. So they're just kind of, they're right around 500. That's kind of where they should be considering the injuries they've had in their rotation with Garrett Richards and Tyler Skaggs. And they haven't gotten anything out of Houston Street this year. He's out for the season. So and then Mike Trout was out for a month too. So they're probably playing about as well as they can right now, just to be a little bit under 500.
Well, you talk about the injuries. I mean, you had that thing going on, especially on the pitching side. Man, here in Baltimore, it hadn't been injuries. Just everybody stunk for the most part for long stretches of time. I mean, you've been following baseball a long time. You told me the last time a team came into Anaheim in August with guys in the rotations with ERAs in the 6s, 7s, and 8s, and somehow are still in the rotation. They finally made the move on Tillman over the weekend. But, man, when you have no cavalry and you don't have a farm system, and I know the Angels struggled with that for a number of years, and 2 years ago I was out there on my 30-30 tour, and you're firing general managers in Depoto in the middle of July as well. I mean, there's been some turmoil around there, as well as, much like the Orioles, giving contracts out. The Orioles did it with Chris Davis, and the Angels imported Pujols and Hamilton before that. The big money of Artie Moreno, it's been a cautionary tale, has it not?
Well, yeah, the Hamilton thing really hurt them because he just didn't fit here. I think he had a lot of problems that in his personal life that were a lot better addressed in Texas than they were here. And he also got hurt. And, the club basically gave up on him and made it very difficult for him to feel like he was at home here. And
it's very expensive to give up on him, right?
Yeah, well, they did. Yeah, and they didn't provide him with the support system that he needed. As far as Albert goes, I mean, he struggled the last month or so, but if you look last year, he was third in the league in RBIs. I mean, he has not been the problem. In fact, he's done a good job of protecting Trout. Now, obviously, that was a big, long contract, and I doubt if he's going to be very good at the end of it. But the day after he signed it, the Angels got a very big Fox local TV contract, probably because of it. So I don't think they really regret that one too much. And when you look at some of the contracts that have been signed since then, it doesn't make it look as outrageous as it might have at the time.
As we sat around here in the weeks leading up to the trading deadline, by the way, we got Mark Wicker on the line, longtime columnist out in Southern California, kind enough to give us a little bit of time. He's doing things now at the LA Daily News and the news group there. You can follow him out on Twitter at MWicker, that's WHICKER, 03 Lang out on Twitter as well. The Machado thing here is fascinating. I mean, first off, you got Buck and Dan Duquette up at the end of next year, so they will enter next year lame duck if there's no signing or re-upping of what has been a relatively glorious period here by Orioles standards over the last 35 years, and I know you've covered baseball for that long. But Machado, they're not going to get it done with him here. I don't think they're going to do that $300 million thing. We're at the end where nothing's going to get bought off at all. The Angels kind of went in early on Trout, and as much as you might look at Pujols or Hamilton and say there was money there wasted or money left on the table, certainly not the case with Trout. And, the Nationals and the Orioles and maybe even the Yankees with Judge would be luckier. We have Scope here who, he's now dangling, and unless you're going to dangle $20 million a year out in front of some of these guys, or 35 in the case of Trout, you're not going to get a couple of years out of them, right?
Yeah, and they've got Trout through 2020, and the price goes up to $33 million a year next year, and it runs that way for the last 3 years of his deal. But yeah, I mean, he's the main reason people go see this team play, and a lot of people have said, well, he's kind of wasting his career here. But the fact is that without him, they wouldn't have much. So they wouldn't have much that people would want to come see or watch on TV. So I don't think anything's going to happen with him. Maybe if the Angels are still in bad shape in 2020 and we get to the trade deadline, there might be a lot of pressure to do something, but I don't think they're going to do anything yet because there's no way you can get equal value for somebody like him. I mean, he's going to be a Hall of Fame player if he doesn't get hurt, and he's going to get his 1,000th hit with his next hit, and he turns 26 tomorrow. So he's the best thing that's happened to this franchise in a long time, and he's going to be here. I mean, he's going to be their marquee player until the contract runs out, and then we'll see what happens.
And that cost $100 million early on, right? Literally, that was the price of poker for Artie Moreno, who's never been shy about throwing money around, right? And, I mean, you've been there for all of this, and you remember when the Angels had good teams, even back in the late 70s, and when they were buying the Cinseys and the Gritches and the Reggie Jacksons, and, Tanan and Ryan were running around there before that. I mean, you go back to all of that, but they were always sort of the second team out there, and, Moreno changed that, right? And now it's sort of a little more lopsided, but you mentioned the TV part of the Angels. The big story with the Dodgers is they're not on television out there, right?
Well, there's about 35% of the people can see them, but and that situation's been going on for years now. And I think a lot of people, to see them, I think they go to the bars where the games are on, or they find other ways to do it. But it's still the way it was, and it's got to be killing Dodger fans who aren't able to really see this season and the way that they're winning games. It's more pronounced this year than it's ever been. But, it's always really been a Dodger area. It's a lot like the Lakers and the Clippers. I mean, even though the Lakers have been abysmal the last 3 years, it's a Laker town, and you can see that in almost every aspect. No matter what the Clippers do, the Lakers are the ones that people talk about and follow. And that's because their fathers followed them and their grandfathers followed them. It's the same thing with the Dodgers. And the Dodgers also have a huge impact in following in the Latino community. And one reason for that is that, Jaime Herrin has been doing radio in that community in Spanish for all those years, and the Dodgers were the first team to really do that. So they have a very, very deep following, and it's been a quiet one the last few years when they weren't that good. But really, they've been a pretty good team for about the last 5 years, and this is the year that they've been sort of building toward. And now it's the place has just really gone nuts for the Dodgers, and the crowds, the atmosphere at the stadium is beyond what it's been in a long, long time. And I think everybody's got the feeling this is the year, and if it's not, maybe next year will be.
You know what I say to the Nationals and the Astros and the Dodgers this year, same as I said to the Cubs last year, better win game one. Whether that is Yu Darvish or whether that's a healthy version of Kershaw, which we can all, assume that it would be. They'll certainly have every opportunity to set things up. Game one's kind of sort of everything, right?
Well, game one is big, and if you're going to play the Nationals, which they may do at some point, you've got to match, Scherzer, and if Strasburg is healthy, you got to match him. If you're going to play the Cubs, you have to match, Hendricks or Lackey or Arrieta or Lester. And now that they have Darvish, and plus Alex Wood has had a great year for them, their depth in the starting rotation is much better than it's been. Ryu has pitched very well the last few outings, and you also have Rich Hill, who's pitched well the last month or so. So I think the thing that's hurt them in some playoffs in recent years is they've had to start guys in game three that they didn't really want to start. Now I don't think they're really that concerned about their starting rotation. And they also improved their bullpen on paper, and their bullpen was already the best in the league. But, when you get in a 5-game series, everything is out the door. I mean, you can look at any of these websites and pick out 7 or 8 teams that won 100 games and didn't get there, didn't win the whole thing. I mean, they had the second best 100-game record in the National League to the 1970 Reds, that was the first year of the Big Red Machine. And that team lost to the Orioles in 5 games in 1970. Now, the main reason was their pitching wasn't very good, and Dodgers pitching is good. But it's just a reminder, that the 2001 Seattle Mariners didn't get out of the championship series either. I think everybody now is getting to be a little bit mindful of the fact that this is fun. Let's follow it. Let's enjoy it. Let's savor it. But it doesn't necessarily carry over.
And meanwhile, the Angels are trying to pick up pace here. You give them any chance of being the team that catches fire here over the next couple of weeks? I mean, certainly they're identically under 500 as the series, gets underway. And, it's been nothing special from the Orioles, but you look up and you say, well, hell, they're a week or two of decent baseball away from being a wild card team. And, for all of these teams reaching for that magic prize, I mean, are the Angels trending right as far as you can tell?
Well, they had a 4-game winning streak until Saturday, and then they lost to Oakland Saturday and Sunday, and now they play the Orioles, and they're going to play Seattle, so that they get a chance to really match up against some of the wild card teams. But, they don't have that ace pitcher that that they can count on to get them going. And other than Trout and Andrelton Simmons, they really aren't very dynamic offensively. So they've just been out hard. They have not caught fire in any way, shape, or form all season. They've just been kind of treading water all season.
Simmons a nice ball player too, right? I mean,
Simmons has had a tremendous year. I mean, he's hitting around 300, and he's probably the best defensive shortstop there is. So that's been a great move by Billy Epler, the general manager. One of his first deals actually was he traded Sean Newcomb, who was the number one prospect they had, left-handed pitcher, to the Braves to pick up Simmons. And at that time, a lot of people down here didn't know how good Simmons was, but they know now. He's just and he's a good guy, and he's a good guy in the clubhouse, and he's young and athletic, and he's a star. There's no question about it, even though he might not be recognized as such.
If the Orioles fans stay awake late enough here the next couple of nights on the East Coast, they might actually get to see Bud Norris. We're kind of familiar with him around here. I mean, he has certainly resurrected himself as a closer, right?
Well, he's had a few little bumps and bruises lately, but yeah, that's one of the best things they've done is get saves out of him. I don't think anybody anticipated that happening, but when they lost Houston Street, they lost Cam Bedrosian, and they lost Andrew Bailey. They lost three guys who had closed, and so somebody had to do it. And he's taken the ball, and he's done about as good a job as one could expect.
Longtime columnist out in the Southern California area, longtime at the Orange County Register, now with the LA News Group and the LA Daily News. You can follow Mark Wicker's journey out on Twitter at mwicker03lang on Twitter, as well as with the LA Daily News Group. Last thing for you, it's Los Angeles. I know we got some baseball on the mind, but boy, you've waited a long time. You and all the Los Angeles sports writers and sportscasters and people to talk National Football League football. Now, you get the Rams, you get the Chargers. Dude, is there any sort of thing happening there about the Chargers playing in a soccer stadium or the Rams playing in a bowl that's 100 years old that's too big for them? And could either one of these teams sort of capture some of the imagination of L.A.? It feels kind of big out there, doesn't it?
Well, the Rams had a great chance to do that last year, and they went 4-12. And they unlike the Chargers, they had a history in LA. They had a lot of people who remembered them from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and really before that, because the Rams were the first professional team here to really cause a stir, even before the Dodgers moved out here. So the Rams had a chance, and they didn't take advantage of that chance. Their fans are still there, but now the Chargers are going to be competing with them a little bit. That'll be an interesting thing because I don't think people in San Diego are going to come up and watch the Chargers. They're still too mad at the Spanos family for them moving, and so
yeah, we didn't go to Indianapolis when they pulled out of here, Mark, as you know.
No, and the Chargers have a chance to be pretty good. So if they do start winning some games, the stadium that they're playing in at StubHub Center is only going to be about 32,000. So they could create a little demand for tickets and maybe get a little buzz going if they start out 3-1 or 4-2, and that means a lot of people won't be paying attention to the Rams either. But while that's going on, the Dodgers will be in the playoffs. The USC is going to be on a lot of people's minds because people think they have a chance to win the national championship this year in football. And then the Lakers will crank up in November with Lonzo Ball and all of that. So pro football here, I mean, it doesn't dominate the market like it does in so many other places. And you have to win, and you have to be exciting in order to get a lot of attention.
He's in Hollywood covering all things baseball out in Los Angeles. mwicker03lang's the way to find him out on Twitter, as well as the LA Daily News and the LA News Group. Mark, a pleasure to have you on. Followed your work for a long, long time. I appreciate you making a little time and talking some Halos baseball. Keep those rally monkeys to yourself this week. We need to stay in this pennant race out there. We don't know what's going on with Flacco here. We need the Orioles to hang in there as long as they can, man.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark. Mark Wicker joining us out in Los Angeles, California, where the Birds are going to be keeping us up late and hopefully less Bud Norris into the middle of the night and more quality starts. Orioles looking okay at home last week. We'll see how they fare out in Anaheim, Oakland, and then on to Seattle. You can find me out in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear. Morning newspaper ships to your email inbox. It's 7 a.m. every single morning. It happens all digitally via email, and it's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. There's always one right around the corner from you. Never a better time than now to get in post-beach bikini late summer shape. But football season's coming. It means you're going to be drinking and winging and pizzaing and doing all that crazy stuff that I'm going to be doing around here, so get to Planet Fitness. Last but never least, any breaking news happens first on your WNST tech service. That is all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis Kolatzos will be here on Thursday driving you home from 3 until 5. It is the SSV on WNST. He's all fired up for fake football. I'm fired up because it's the Redskins, but that won't last but about 3 or 4 minutes. One possession each direction. Then then it just becomes preseason football, and it's about the weather. Nasty at WNST.net reaches me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook Live, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. If you're going to London, look me up. We're throwing a party on that Saturday. Throw me an email, nasty at WNST.net. I'll get you that information out. Chapter 9 of the Peter Principles now out. Chapter 10 and 11 coming later this week. Letting the Moose Loose and Mike Messina. Should have released that one on a Yankees week. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.